fun to be able to walk into the studio and tell everybody about something like Angi. You hear me every day talk about how easy it is to have that Angi app in the palm of your hand, get a professional to your home for a renovation, for work, because I'm not exactly a do-it-yourselfer, but I sure do love Angi. And so it's a real joy at one of our kitchen chats to visit with Mischa Fisher. Mischa is the chief economist at Angi, which I believe has got to be a very crucial job and a big part of the process, the Angi process. It's great being able to visit with you, Mischa. Let's talk about millennials and home ownership, because we don't instinctively think about millennials needing Angi to go fix, have some work done in the home. Are millennials buying homes these days?
They are. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Mike. It's great to be with you. It's definitely something that we're seeing pick up a lot as a result of not only the pandemic, but also just fundamental demographics around the age of people in the millennial cohort. So right now, the overall national homeownership rate's about 65%, so roughly 2 in 3 people. And millennials are still a little under that, but they're now the number one buyers of homes as they hit their early 30s to mid 30s and start entering those stages of life where they suddenly realize, hey, a yard's a pretty nice thing to have. I want to do some backyard grilling. I want to raise a family. I want something that's got a little bit more space.
What are their priorities in buying homes? It kind of put us into the mindset of a millennial who wants to buy a home. What are their top priorities?
Their top priorities really range a lot depending on kind of where they are and what stage of life. The overall millennial cohort can be pretty dramatic, right? The youngest ones are in their mid-late 20s, and then the oldest are approaching 40. But overwhelmingly, what we've seen increase is lifestyle and family in terms of what they're prioritizing. If you look at what people are prioritizing in years past, things like a return on investment and repairing like defects and decays in your house were pretty important. Now, when we're looking at remodeling, what we're seeing is people saying, hey, I got to spend a lot more time at home. I've got a lot new needs, and I want this thing to really suit my lifestyle. I want it to be comfortable. Maybe they're more visually motivated. Certainly millennials and things like Instagram are a well-known phenomenon. So maybe they want a nicer kitchen to show off their cooking to their friends, that sort of thing. So we're seeing a lot of improvement in how much lifestyle is being prioritized.
So everybody knows how much I rely on Angi and I've been doing some renovating in my home in Florida. And of course, I don't know what I would do without Angi. What's been surprising for millennials about the renovation process when they use Angi for help?
I think the number one thing that they get caught up on, in addition to maybe the overall price of what some things cost, and that's one of the things that Angi does is help people better understand what they should expect to pay based on where they are. But the other thing is you've got to really plan well. If you don't, you're going to run into price. You're going to go over budget on your prices, and you're going to go over time. And you don't want to have either of those things happen. It's your home. It's this very intimate place. You don't want to be staying in a hotel because your kitchen reno or your bath reno took twice as long as you thought it would. You certainly don't want to get the sticker shock of something costing a lot more when it's already sort of half demolished. And that's why hiring a good quality pro is so important. And I think that's why you're smart to use the app, because it allows you to get a better sense of how happy people are with the pros you're hiring. Because the best tile out there, your perfect color paint, the trim hardware you want, all those things are irrelevant if they never get installed or they get installed poorly, or they're just going to leave a bad taste in your mouth if it ends up taking way too long. And by about a 3 or 4 to 1 ratio, people go over budget versus under budget, or over time versus under time on their scheduling.
Visiting with Mischa Fisher, chief economist at Angi, with one of the Mike Gallagher Show kitchen chats. Now, I know why I use Angi. I mean, again, I don't know which end of the hammer to hold. But what about millennials? Because do they tend to be do-it-yourselfers? Do they want to do renovations themselves? Or do they do what I do and hire pros through Angi?
They tend to do what you do and hire pros through Angi and marketplaces. I think there are certainly very, very handy millennials. Growing up on a farm, I try and be one of them. I try and do some things around the house myself. But there are certain things that no matter how handy you are, things like working on your gas lines or your electrical lines or your plumbing, you probably want to hire a pro anyway, because those things are overwhelmingly not something you want to be playing around with if you've never looked at them before. But on top of that, it's, I think, pretty well established at this point that millennials really care about having their free time and doing exactly what they want. And if you don't feel like painting, they're going to just, they're going to hire somebody to do that for them. So there is some DIY activity among millennials, but I think they're actually a little less handy than some of the older generations.
Now, you guys study this because you're so research-based, and obviously as chief economist at Angi, you know this stuff, so I'm going to ask you this question. I'm curious about how do millennials compare to other generations in how and where they're spending on renovations?
There is a big difference in certain product categories. So flooring is pretty popular across the generations, going from the youngest millennials to the silent gens with boomers and Gen Xers in the middle. Everybody kind of does flooring at about the same level. You see it sort of spike at about 1 in 3 among households doing projects do some sort of flooring replacement for millennials, and it only drops by a few percent when you look at Gen X and boomers. But if you look at other projects like home offices, those aren't really something that many boomers or silent generation are touching. It's almost non-existent among that product category, but it's very popular among millennials. So there are some projects that are universally popular, like flooring. There's some that are very specific to what stage of life you're in, like adding a home office is much more of a millennial thing, because if they're at that age where they need one, they're at that sort of sweet spot where they haven't yet acquired a great big house where they can just convert a room right off the bat. But they're also maybe hitting the professional stage of life where they could use it, or they need to do more planning for, kids' schooling and all those sorts of things where it's nice to have a dedicated space.
I know how much fun I get to tell everybody about. I have in telling people about Angi. It must be a joy for you to go to work every day. I love this app. I love what Angi is able to offer. As I say every day, Angi is your home for everything home. Mischa Fisher, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to talk to us about millennials, renovations, and wonderful Angi. Thanks very much. I know our listeners appreciate you very much, and we sure do love Angi.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Appreciate it a lot. Great conversation.